Hello. So, as you probably guessed between the title and my shirt and the book in the background and the pop vinyl in the background and the red dragon and, the foo dog and the actual dog, maybe not so much the actual dog. This video is going to be about, this is going to be the first video for the two-parter videos for Mulan. Which the original animated Disney one came out in 1998. And this is just going to be the original story, the original movie is what I'm going to talk about in this one, and then the animated sequel that they had. And then the next video will be about the sneezing dog. Are you done? And then the next video will be about the live action stuff and the miscellaneous stuff. So that'll be the House of Mouse stuff, the Kingdom Hearts stuff, the Wreck-It Ralph, Once Upon a Time, Descendants, and then the live action one from last year, from 2020. So first we'll start off with this one. First we'll see if the dog's going to stick around. So the movie Mulan, the original one, opens with these beautiful, watercolor type drawings, paintings that are very reminiscent, of course, of, Chinese paintings and scrolls and pictures and portraits and, even calligraphy in and of itself. And it forms into the Great Wall of China. And we are introduced to Shang, who is he's a Hun that's invading China. He's the leader of the Huns. And, he attacks the Great Wall. They send up the signal that, China is being attacked. The Huns have invaded China. And, that's, spreads along the Great Wall. And, of course, this is exactly what Shang wants, because he wants, people to panic. He wants to, cause fear. He wants to make them lose faith in their emperor. I mean, it's a decent strategy. I'll give him that much. It worked exactly as his plan. He wants everyone to know that the Huns are here. And that's our villain for the movie. I don't know if I mentioned this. No, I think I mentioned this in the Great Mouse Detective. Shang and then Professor Ratigan are the only two Disney villains, as far as I'm aware, that are in the animated movies that have actually killed children. Now, other ones have probably killed adults. They're the only two that have actually killed children, which is not a fun club to be in, but I do find Shang a lot more intimidating than a evil rat that I could probably kick. So, and then, it transitions to, we are introduced to the Emperor, and we are introduced to General Shang, and with the Emperor's counselor, whatever his name, Shifu, and we're introduced to them, and instead of it being the emperor wants he doesn't want his instead of it being that the emperor has his men only defend himself in the city, he says, no, you go and protect my people, and you basically do a draft, you bring in one man from every household, reserves, everything. And of course, we get the whole thing of one man may be the difference between victory and defeat. The single grain of rice may tip the scale. And then we, of course, are introduced to Fa Mulan. I'm just going to be going with the pronunciations that I'm familiar with in the movie. If I am mispronouncing the names, I apologize. I will probably mispronounce the names a bit more in the live action one in regards to when I talk about the live action remake, and I apologize for that. I'm apologizing now. I'll probably apologize then as well. Chinese is obviously not a language that I know very much of, but I can do the names for the movies in regards to the animated one. So we, of course, are introduced to Fa Mulan and her family. We are introduced to her father, Fa Zhu, and her mother, Li, and then her grandmother, who just doesn't have a first name. She's just Grandmother Fa. And, she has her horse Ka, who is kind of the closest thing she has to a best friend. She has a little brother who is a dog. In the actual Mulan, the Ballad of Mulan, she does have a little brother, but he's actually a little brother, but he's not old enough to be able to go off to war, which is where the conflict comes into, later on. As I said, in the ballad, she does have a little brother. In the movie, she does not. In the sequel, she has a younger sister, or not in the sequel. In the live action one, she has a younger sister, but that'll be for the live action one. So, we're introduced to them. We are shown that Mulan is smart. She's writing, even though she's smart, she's writing cheat notes on her arm, which I love that concept because, so many of us have probably done that. No, I have no idea what you mean. No, I don't know why. Nope. Mm-mm. Everyone's done it. Well, I haven't done it, but a lot of people have done it. Or you write the answers on your hand or your wrist or whatever, the cheat sheet. I love that. And, so she's doing that, and we're introduced to her and her father, and we see how much she cares about her father already. And then she has to run off to the town and everything, because they seem to have like a bit of just a farm area there. I guess it's just like their acreage, their house. They have farmland on the house, quite obviously. And they have chickens, and they have the horse and everything. And it's a very nice area. They seem to be a very well-to-do family. We learn that, of course, her father is a war hero from the previous war, probably the last time the Huns attacked or whatever, or the last whatever enemy that attacked. Her father was a war hero in that time frame, and so he's probably been gifted with a fair amount of land because of that. And so that's where that came from, is probably the best explanation as to, they have a fair amount of money. But Mulan rushes off to the market to, get ready because she has to meet the matchmaker. And that's not really a fun thing to do. So she goes through the whole process of her mom and a bunch of the other ladies that are in the village, the people that are in charge of makeup and the people that are in charge of dressing. They might be like extended members of the Fa family, or they might just be people who are associated with the Fa family. But they're all getting all these girls ready to go and meet the matchmaker. And, Mulan goes through the process, bathing, makeup, hair, outfit, all that fun stuff that goes with it. And, she has her grandmother, who I would think is where some of Mulan's spirit comes from, because the first thing that her grandma does when we're introduced to her is she takes a cricket that is inside of a cage and she walks into oncoming cart traffic and goes, covers her eyes and then walks into the oncoming traffic. And, all the traffic crashes, but she's fine. And I'm like, okay, we definitely have where some of Mulan's spirit comes from. So Mulan has to go through all of that, and her grandma gives her even more good luck. It was an apple for serenity, a pendant for balance, beads of jade for beauty, and then the cricket for more luck to help her. And then Mulan and all the other girls are then off to go and meet the matchmaker. The matchmaker is not a nice lady. We get the song, "Honor to Us All," is the first song that we get in the movie. It is, everybody in the village singing about, this is the roles that you're in. The girls are supposed to bear sons, marry and bear sons. And then, the boys are supposed to, grow to become soldiers, to be able to serve the emperor, because they're all supposed to serve the emperor one way or the other. And, we get kind of those roles, we get, lots of the lines about, what is expected of a wife. And, in Mulan, she doesn't seem to like this idea, but it's more, she will do it for her family because it brings honor to her family, to have a good marriage, have a good match, and everything. And so then the matchmaker comes out, and Mulan is the first one that goes in, and we kind of, if you've seen the movie, you know how this scene goes. She, it doesn't go well. She, the matchmaker gets some of the ink from the cheat notes on her, and the cricket causes problems. The matchmaker gets set on fire. And Mulan has to throw tea on her to put the fire out. And the matchmaker just gets so angry at Mulan for this. And, it's like, you're a disgrace. You'll never be a bride. you'll never bring your family honor, you're worthless, type of a thing. And she screams this in front of everybody that was in that was there watching. This excludes her, Mulan's mother and her grandmother and the other girls that were there to go to the matchmaker to get a good husband picked for them, and the other people in the village that probably all know who Mulan is and who her father is and who her mother is and everything. And a lot of times in Chinese cultures, you kind of stay within the same area a lot of the time, which in some cultures that's the way it works. A lot of time your family stays in this area for a long amount of time, but that doesn't, unfortunately. Mulan is very disheartened and downtrodden and very sad and everything, and she makes her way back home. She's very ashamed of this, and she makes her way back home. And her father was very hopeful because her father loves her very much. Her mother and her grandmother love her very, very much too. That is quite obvious. But she can't even bring herself to go and speak to her father about the fact that, no, it didn't work. I didn't get, she couldn't even bring herself to go and tell her father how horrible it was, how horrible of an impression she made on the matchmaker. And then we get the song that is probably, when I was growing up, the song from Disney that I connected with the most, which is Reflection. And it's Mulan singing, and it's we get to see all these beautiful things around in the garden and everything all around her. And we also get to see the lines of that basically sum up how can I be what I really am and still make my family proud. It's my job to make my family proud. It's my job to marry into a good family, to bring more status to our family, to make my parents proud, to make our village proud. And and I can't even do that right. And who's when I look into the mirror, who's this person that I see, and is it really me? Is it what am I supposed to be? And it's just those lines, to a lot of people when they're growing up, those lines really connect to them. They definitely connected to me a lot when I was a kid. They still do, in all honesty, because it's that whole thing of, you have to, trying to find who you're going to be, who you want to be, who can you become that you are proud of and that your family will be proud of as well. And from there, we get, she's going through all the garden and everything, and she's going up into the temple of the ancestors, and we get her, more singing, more looking at all of the various versions of her reflection that are looking back at her from the gravestones that are there, the tablets with all the different family on them, all the names of her ancestors going so far back on her mother's side, on her father's side, on the other families that have married into their family over the years and over the centuries and the generations. And she's very much, and we get the moment where she's staring at one of the gravestones, and these things are just polished, so they shine, so they act just like mirrors. And she wipes the makeup off of one side, and then we get that dichotomy down the middle of this is one side is what society expects her to be, this beautiful, demure, perfect little woman, housewife, good at everything that a woman's supposed to be good at. And then the other half is, what am I supposed to be? What do I want to be? And she wipes off the rest of the makeup, and she lets her hair down as she's still she's still singing. And as I said, I love the song. Just, you can usually tell which songs I like the most out of the movie based on, how long I talk about them. Out of different movies based on how long I talk about them. This one is, definitely my favorite out of the songs from Mulan. Not that I don't like the other ones, but this one's definitely my favorite. And, she goes and she sits underneath the blossom tree, and her father comes and he talks to her. And well, first he's trying to make her feel better, of course. And he makes the comparison between her and this flower on the tree that hasn't bloomed yet. It's late, and it's it'll be the most beautiful of them all. And that's the quote that he uses is going to be the quote at the end of this video. because that by far is one of my favorite quotes from Mulan, and I will be quoting Mulan, of course, a lot throughout this movie, or throughout this video. But, so he's trying to cheer her up and reminding her that, you're still my daughter, I still love you, I'm still very proud of you, even if it didn't go the way that we expected, we'll try again, type of a thing. And that's when, they get the message, that's when, Shifu and these other soldiers show up and they're, delivering all the conscription notices to everyone. And, all the other families are able to give, like a son that can go and fight, or, the father is still able to fight, so he goes, or the father's too old, so the son goes, or whatever the case may be. And, Fazu, Mulan's father, doesn't have any other children. He doesn't have any sons. He just has Mulan. And so he, he's the one that would have to go, and, Mulan gets between him and Shifu and is like, no, you can't, you can't take my father. He's already fought for China. And Shifu, of course, gets very angry at this. And Shifu's just kind of a a-hole anyway. Yeah, no, don't like Shifu, and I would put him as like the second antagonist in this movie because he's just not good. He's misogynistic and everything, and it's horrible. But and he gets his comeuppance at the end of the movie, which if you've seen the movie, you know this. If you've seen the movie, you know a lot of this stuff, but it's still my commentary on the movie, I guess. And so he, her father still tastes the conscription notice. He tells Mulan, you dishonor me in regards to, talking back to, the, emperor, representative of the emperor and everything. And they all go back, and all the family goes back in. And this, this happens with, so many of the people, their neighbors in the village and everything watching. That night, we get, of course, kind of the confrontation scene between Mulan and her father, because the next day is when he's supposed to go off to go to the camp where, he'll be trained and everything. Well, I guess retrained. And, they have this argument. Well, it's either, I don't remember if it's they have the argument at the dinner table. They have the argument at the dinner table, of course, with, her mother and her father and her grandmother and everything. And, like, the grandmother's not really saying anything. Her son's going to go off to war again. And her mother and her father both know that he's probably not going to come back. They all know this. But, that it's his duty, it's his honor to do this, to go and serve the emperor again. He has no son, therefore it is his responsibility to do this. And, Mulan blows up at them, and she's like, there's plenty of young men, you shouldn't have to do this, and everything. And, they have this argument. And I think it was before that she saw her father go, and he goes and gets his armor, and he's looking at his armor, and he pulls out his sword, and he's, trying to move with the sword. And unfortunately her father has a limp. He probably got injured in the last war. And he's still injured, of course, because, it didn't heal right. So he's still injured and he can't fight. And that just basically even sets in even more. And, she doesn't want her father to go off to war because he's never going to come back and he's going to die. And her and her mother and her grandmother are all going to, lose him and be left without him. And it's another one of the Disney stories that is very much about a bond between a father and a daughter. And, we got that with Little Mermaid. We got that with Beauty and the Beast. We got that with, Aladdin, between, Belle and her father. And, it's we don't get that many where it's like a mom and the son, or a mom and the daughter that have this huge bond. It's usually, no, the mom's dead. At least, Mulan still has her mother. That's, that's improvement, I guess, over Jasmine, Ariel, Belle, Cinderella, Snow White. Aurora still has her mother. But yeah. So, Mulan, of course, doesn't want her father to go off to war. And we get the scene where we have, it's pouring rain outside, and she's sitting by this giant stone dragon statue that they have. She's sitting on it. And she's watching her mother and her father basically say goodnight for what will probably be the last time. And she just, she realizes that, okay, I can't let this happen. I can't let my father go to war. I can't let my father do this because he will die. If I go, at least my mom and my grandmother still have my father, and I can go in his place. So she goes to the temple, she does a quick prayer to the ancestors, she goes into the house, she steals the conscription notice, leaves her, hair beret behind, takes the armor, takes the sword, cuts her hair, takes her, gets the armor on, rides off on Ka, rides off on her horse into the night, disguised as a man with her father's conscription notice, pretending to be his son. Her grandmother wakes up her parents. They realize Mulan's gone. And, Mulan's mother is like, you have to go after her, to her father. And he's like, if I go after her and reveal who she is, she will die because they will kill her. And then we cut to the Temple of the Ancestors, where we have I think it's the first ancestor of the Fa family wakes up. And then he wakes up Mushu and has Mushu wake up all the other ancestors. And then we, of course, have all the ancestors arguing about, Mulan shouldn't have done this. This is from your side of the family. This is definitely not from my side of the family. Why can she do this? Why is she doing this? This is nothing but dishonor everywhere. Everything's going to just go horribly wrong. All the stuff that, the stereotypical stuff of like, well, how can she do this? She's going to dishonor the family and the name and her father and her mother and blah, 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 blah. And, everything's just going to go down the hole. And, Mushu kind of volunteers that, I can go and do this. We learn, of course, that Mushu was a guardian of the Fa family, but he has been demoted to Gong Ringer. And just mostly, I'm assuming, because he, very much failed very badly on his last mission. And now they decided they're going to go and send the Great Stone Dragon, which is the giant dragon statue that Mulan had been sitting on. And that we see a little bit in Reflection. And, the ancestor tells Mushu, go wake up the Great Stone Dragon. Mushu, unfortunately, breaks the Great Stone Dragon, disintegrates it. And then Mushu was like, well, Stone Dragon destroyed, so he can't go and get her. Now she's going to go do this. What am I supposed to do? And he interacts with Cricky, who is the cricket. And Cricky's like, well, Cricky doesn't actually say anything, but, Mushu can, speak to animals, of course, because he's a dragon. And he's like, wait, what do you mean I should go after her? What are you, crazy? And that, and he's like, well, if I bring her back with a medal, they'll have to let me back in the temple, and they can't be mad at me. So that's Mushu's plan. Runs off with the cricket, who claims to be lucky, and they make their way to the camp. They follow Mulan, and we end up. Then we cut back to Shanu and his gang, and they've pillage a city, and they're on their way to they're working their way through the mountains to the imperial city so they can go after the emperor, of course. And they locate 2 spies. They send the spies off with a message that says, tell your emperor to send the strongest armies and everything, and sends them off, kills one of them. And him and his horde of Huns are very bloodthirsty in regards, but from their point of view, not to like, it gives them the right to this. They are invading another country and everything, and they're just killing everybody. They're killing all villagers, children, women, doesn't matter, elderly. They don't care. They're just trying to cause as much harm and damage and fear and panic as they can. We cut back to the camp where Mulan is talking to her horse, trying to figure out, okay, how am I gonna get into this camp and pretend to be a man? So she's trying to figure out, okay, well, how can I talk like a man? Then she meets Mushu, and that's just a funny scene in and of itself. because you get Eddie Murphy playing a dragon, and you already get a bunch of fun going on there. Um, so that's a lot of fun with that. And from there, we get, Mushu trying to tell her, well, I'll just, follow my lead, just listen to me, and we'll get through this. And she's kind of skeptical of him. She probably should have been a bit more skeptical of him, in all honesty. But that doesn't go so well, unfortunately, because Mulan goes into the camp and ends up causing a fight. She meets Yao Ling and Chin Po, who are, Ling is the tall, skinny one, Yao is the shorter, round one, and then Chin Po is the very large one, out of the three. And they don't. Mulan does not make a very good first impression on them. Doesn't make a very good first impression on anyone, mostly because she's following Mushu's advice, and that doesn't go so well. Then we are reintroduced to General Shang and his son, Li Shang. And, well, it's General Li, and then his son is Li Shang. And, Shifu is there, and, the general is putting Shang in charge of, training up these new recruits. And then, in 3 weeks, send us a report. And, Shifu does not think that Shang is up to this, and even states as much. But, the general goes off, and unfortunately, if you've seen the movie, this is the last time that Shang sees his father. But his father leaves with, the utmost confidence in his son, heads off. And, they see that there's this giant brawl going on outside of the tent, and there's, all the soldiers are fighting each other. There's food and rations and all this other stuff. There's tents that have been knocked over. There's food all over the ground. And that's not good. There's food all over the ground, and that's just a large waste of that. And Shang, who's responsible for all of this? And they find out that it's they all point to Mulan, and Mulan has to come up with a name for what to be called, and she goes, Ping, call me Ping. Fa Ping explains, I'm Fa Zhu's son, and I from what it seemed like, it may have seemed like maybe Shang's father had known Fa Zhu, but I would also, because Shang knew who Fa Zhu was, and so did Shifu. I mean, by technicality, he just interacted with him the day before, so you would have thought that maybe Shifu would have been like, hey, wait a second. Your sister insulted me yesterday, type of thing. Wait a second. I met your sister yesterday. She insulted me. Shifu's an a-hole, as I said. But Shang, punishes the new recruits by saying, okay, because of Ping here, everybody's gonna pick up all the grains of rice, and then tomorrow the real work begins. And of course, we cut to the next morning, and Mulan gets breakfast from Mushu, and then she has to head off to go and be with the other troops so they can start training. And Shang does this test of them to try to kind of gauge them. He takes an arrow, shoots it into the top of this extremely tall pole, and then he says, okay, every single one of you are going to try climbing this pole. But you're going to have to do it with these two, metal disc rings that are going to be tied to your hands, or going to be, looped over your hands, and you have to climb with them because one represents discipline and the other represents strength. And that doesn't go so well. Yao tries it, he fails. Ling fails, Chen Po fails, Mulan fails, probably all the other recruits failed. And then, of course, we get the song, I'll Make a Man Out of You, which is, of course, the big training song that they do. We show lots of different training, them training with explosives and doing karate and kung fu. Then they do karate in this. Yeah, it's karate and kung fu, and them training with bows and arrows and swords and all this other stuff, all the physical training. And Mulan just keeps falling further and further behind. And, Shang basically says, tells her, in the song, you can't do this, just pack up, go home, bye. And she's like, and like in her mind, she's like, I can't go back because I can't go back and face my father for what I did, for stealing his armor, for stealing his sword and everything, and be able to face him without doing better than I've done. Until this is finished, I can't go back. And I'm assuming, but what it looks like, because like the pole with the arrow is still there. That's kind of just like, I guess, it's a representative of like a challenge that maybe like every so many days we're going to see if anybody can climb this thing. And what ends up happening is, and they must have like the discs for the weights right next to it, because Mulan, picks them up, and she tries climbing it a few times, and then she finally figures out, she starts using her brain more, because Mulan is demonstrated to be quite smart, and smart and clever, and she ends up using the sashes on the on the weights to tie themselves together, and then she uses that as leverage to climb her way up the pole. And the next morning, when all of the soldiers are up, Shang comes out and he hears all this cheering, and he sees that all the soldiers watched Mulan climb up the pole. And she tosses the arrow down, and she's just like sitting up on the pole looking at him like, okay, now what? I'm the one that did this. You wanted me to leave. What you want me to do now? And that gives all the other soldiers the motivation that they need. They all start doing so much better. They all start training better. They're all start training harder and improving and improving and improving. And Shang starts to become very impressed with Mulan. Well, Ping, he calls Ping is of course what she's referred to as. And we have Mushu and the cricket watching, and Mulan's horses there, of course, watching as well, and Ka, and they're all watching, and all of them get stronger and stronger and better. And then we get the end of the song where everyone is everyone's ready to fight. Everyone's up to whatever level that Shang wanted them at. Shifu, of course, does not agree with this, but we get then the bath scene, or the river scene, or the Mulan unfortunately becomes very, very embarrassed and mentally scarred for the rest of her life scene. Depends on which one you want to call it. Mulan goes to bathe in the river, or bathe in this lake, and Shinpo and Ling and Yao show up, and they're now trying to be friendly with Mulan, with Ping, and unfortunately it results in Mulan seeing Yao naked. I don't quite think she sees Ping and Shinpo naked, but she sees Yao naked, and she's just like, oh god, make it stop. But of course we have Mushu comes in to try to save her, and he, bites Ling, and, then he has, then they all, Mulan and him get out of the water, because, if she gets out of the water with them paying attention, they're gonna notice something that is two things that are there and one thing that's not there. That should be there in this regard. And, so she gets out, and I do love the whole bit where it's like Mushu brushing his teeth with like a toothbrush and toothpaste, like, that was vile. You owe me big. And Mulan, I never want to see a naked man again. And then all the other men from the camp just like run past her all naked, and she's just like mortified. And the horse is just like, eh. And Mushu's like, don't look at me, I ain't biting no more butts. And so they go off. Shifu and Shang have the argument where it's like Shifu doesn't think that they're ready. If the soldiers are ready, and Shang thinks that they are. And so, Mulan kind of tries to, I guess, make Shang laugh. And she's like, well, how about you hold him, or I'll hold him and you punch, which is just funny. And it's just, she's like, we notice that she has this crush on him. And I'm pretty sure that throughout the entire, the I'll make a man out of you sequence and everything, that once Shang starts noticing some things about Ping, I would not have been surprised if Shang is like lit in his tent at night, like very confused as to, why do I feel attracted to Ping? Because he like gives these, he's got like these different, he I don't know exactly what's going on in Shang's head, but he's probably like, why do I feel this way about Ping? This is not normal. It's like, I don't have this for any of the other ones, but why do I feel it for Pig? I would just be like that type of a thing. It would just be like one of those moments where it's just like, you know, I guess slightly forward looking for Disney in the 90s, but still not the because like Shang's like, okay, this doesn't feel right. um in regards to, he might already feel kind of attracted to Ping. But so he's, Shang and Faz, or we start noticing that Mulan has this crush on Shang, but of course we have that crush quite obvious. And Mushu does not like the concept of Mulan not going off to war because then he can't get her proclaimed a war hero. But that Mushu doesn't think things through very well, of course. He's more worried about his own ego than Mulan's safety and the safety of these other troops that are now kind of becoming Mulan's friends. And Mushu, of course, with Cricky's help, makes up a fake letter that's supposed to be from General Shang, or General Li, gives it to, Shifu, and then Shifu gives it to Shang, and then, the troops move out. And we get the traveling song, which is a girl worth fighting for, where we get all the different guys talking about what girl they want. Ling wants them paler than the moon with eyes that shine like stars, and Yao wants them to marvel at his strength and adore his battle scars, and Shimpo doesn't care what they wear or look like as long as they can cook. And and we get all the soldiers singing about whatever their perfect girl would be. And that's all of that. Like Mulan's like, what about a girl with a brain who speaks her mind? And I was like, no. And they we get the big traveling song for that, which is just fun. And then we get the very abrupt transition of they reach the village that the letter said to come to, and the village is gone. The village is smoldering ash, nothing but ruins, with the battlefield on the other side. And, everyone in the village is dead. We get that very abrupt turn. And it's a very, that's what war is. Plain and simple, that is what war is. And particularly if there are innocent civilians in the way, that is what war is. War does not usually care about the innocent civilians. It's, nope, either we'll take them as hostages or we'll kill them because we don't have any other use for them. And, that's what happens. And Shang finds out that his father is dead. And, he kind of does a memorial for his father with his sword and helmet. And, Mulan finds this little girl's doll and, places it there as well. And they're all getting ready to, they all move out, moving on their way toward the Imperial Palace because they're the last protection for the Emperor. I'm like, probably should have had a few more soldiers or a few other places training up the soldiers just to be on the safe side in case something like this happened. Unfortunately, Mushu and or Cricky, we don't 100% know which one, unfortunately lights off one of the cannons, which gives away their position, and then they're attacked, and the Huns show up, and, they're, on these giant snowy mountains, and of course we know what happens. Mulan steals the last cannon, runs out and fires the cannon. Well, it would have been like point blank into Shanu, but she fires the cannon point into the mountain covered in snow, and it causes the avalanche, which of course results in her having to save Shang. She gets hurt. She gets hurt in the process. She saves Shang. All of the Huns, of course, get covered in snow, and most of them probably do die. If not right away, they die of freezing to death or they suffocate, one of the two. And, one of the two, whatever happens in regards to, freezing to death covered in snow, either depends on how much air is in the air pocket you're in. And if you can figure out which way is up to climb, to dig your way out of it. and Mulan saves Shang, and then the other soldiers are able to save Mulan and Khan and Shang and Khan and Shang, and then Mulan of course was injured. Ping was injured, and they get him treatment. And of course, this is when it's revealed to everyone that Ping was a woman the entire time. And Chifu gets quite a bit of a satisfaction out of doing that, probably because he recognizes her as the girl that backsassed him several weeks ago. And it's supposed to be Shang is supposed to kill her, but we did the a life for a life. My debt is repaid. He won't kill her because she saved his life. She saved all of their lives in stopping the Huns. But she was still a woman that entered the army, and under in disguise. And he can't bring himself to kill her, but he can't claim she can't come with them. And so they leave her there. They leave her with what appear to be some rations, because they leave her with food and I would assume some clothes to a degree. I would assume that maybe like the Ping, Ling and Yao and Chenpo were now her friends. May have snuck some food to her before they left, and some supplies to her before the troops moved out to head back to head to the Imperial City. To be part of the celebration. And we get the scene where Mulan and Mushu are talking, and she's staring into her helmet again, and she's like, I always, whenever I looked into the mirror, I always wanted to see someone worthwhile. And that if I could do this, if I could just do this, if I could just pull this off, that I wouldn't be so ashamed or so scared every time I look into the mirror. And yeah, I'd say that kind of lists quite a few things in regards to the way that a lot of people feel when they look into the mirror, particularly kids that are growing up, or teenagers, high school students, even kids that are in college, even adults that are still trying to figure out, well, how am I going to look in the mirror and still like who I am, type of a thing, be proud of who I am. It's calling back to reflection. And Mushu's trying to cheer her up, and he like finally says, your ancestors never sent me. They don't like me. I was just going to use you as a way to get me back into the temple and into their good graces, so I could basically have the life of luxury again. And I'm sorry. And it's they both kind of heart to heart confession type thing. And we get that, and then they're ready to head home, because it's like Mushu's like, well, whatever wherever we go, I'm going with you, and we'll face whatever comes next on the way home together. Me facing the ancestors, you facing your parents. We'll face it together. And they all get ready to she gets Mulan and her group get ready to leave. And then they see the Huns popping out of the snow, like daisies, as Mushu puts it. And it's Shanu and his elite warriors that were able to avoid most of the avoid most of the avalanche, and they dug themselves out, and now they're going to head down to the Imperial City, so they can attack the Emperor and kill him. And so Mulan rushes after him, makes her way down to the city. I would assume they probably got there around the same time frame. They're on foot, but she's on horseback. But she kind of has to avoid them and go around them. So they it's like, okay, well, how did you not see each other on the road there? How many roads are there to this city? But they get there. And Mulan tries to warn Shang and the three that the Huns are alive. They're in the city. You have to believe me. And Shang just wants her to leave. She's like, you trusted Ping. Why is Mulan any different? My answer to this, because Mulan is a girl, and it shouldn't make any difference. But you know, it's because Mulan is a girl. That is the only reason. Other than that, you know, it just basically ends up resulting in, you know, Mulan and Mushu. You know, Mulan's like, well, I have to find someone that'll listen to me so I can try to save the Emperor. And she just is continually ignored. And, you know, she's trying to make her way through the crowd to where, you know, to try to get more toward the front of the crowd so if something happens, she can help. And, you know, Shang is presenting the sword of Shan Yu to the Emperor, and then, you know, the hawk, I think it's a hawk or a falcon, one of the two. I can never remember what type of bird it is. I think it's a hawk that Shan Yu has, flies down, grabs the sword, carries it up to the, you know, where the quote unquote, from you know, all intents and purposes, gargoyles are sitting on the ledge around the castle, and one of them grabs it, and it's Shan Yu. And they, you know, a bunch of his men burst out of this, you know, long dragon, you know, dragon float thing that was behind the soldiers, grabs the Emperor, drags him up the stairs into the palace. They block out, you know, they close the doors and, you know, bar the palace so nobody can get in. And, you know, they're, you know, and Shang and the others pick up these giant, you know, stone dragon or stone sculptures that are like lions or so, lions or dragons or so that are, you know, sitting there, and they start trying to ram the door with those to get in. And Mulan's like, well, they're not going to get in there in time to save the Emperor. So she, you know, runs over, tells him, okay, I have an idea. And, you know, the three, I don't even think they really hesitate. They just kind of look at each other, and then they just drop the thing and follow her. And I'm just like, okay, good. Yeah, they follow her, and her idea is, of course, you know, we're gonna pull a flop. We're gonna sneak into the palace the other way so we can get close to them, and that involves the three of you and me. Well, me just kind of wearing my regular clothes, and the three of you dressing up like concubines. All, you know, all four of us kind of pretending to be concubines, so that way the three of you can get close to the Huns. And so they're all dressed up in outfits and makeup and everything. And I'm like, well, it probably took a little while to get you guys all dressed up and find clothes that would fit and then put the makeup on. And the Emperor doesn't have much time, but sure. We gotta watch them be funny and dressed up like women. I'm okay with this. And so we get that flopped on its head where it's like, okay, instead of Mulan pretending to be a man, these guys gotta pretend to be women. And when they're ready to, you know, climb the poles, the same way that Mulan climbed the pole in the training sequence, you know, using their sashes and everything to help give them leverage, Shang shows up and he joins them. He's just in his armor. He's not dressed up like a woman. That would have been funnier, but not quite in his character. But, you know, so they all climb and they all get in, and she's got Mushu there to help. And they, you know, the three, you know, make their way over to several of the guards, and they disarm them, and Mulan disarms them, and Shang goes in so he can get past and get up to go save the Emperor. And the hawk gets barbecued by Mushu, which is funny. And Mulan comes up with a plan, of course, but, you know, Shang runs up to go and try to save the Emperor. And they have, you know, the others chase after them after they've, I'm assuming, knocked out or tied up the other Huns that are there. And, you know, I'm like, apparently Shan Yu has been taking his sweet time trying to decide when he's exactly going to assassinate the Emperor, because, you know, he's had the Emperor in his grasp for, you know, a while now, considering how long it would take to get dressed and climb up the walls and sneak their way in. And, you know, but he's, you know, getting ready to kill the Emperor and everything. And, you know, we get great lines of the Emperor just like, you know, Shan Yu's got a sword to the Emperor's neck, and he's just like, nope, I'm not bowing to you. You know, no matter how the wind howls, the mountain cannot bow to it. I'm like, hey, you know, you know, I'll mention this later when I get to the cast for this, which will be shortly, but, you know, it's like, we have, you know, Mr. Miyagi as the Emperor. We have, you know, we have, you know, the guy that trains the Karate Kid is the Emperor, and he gets just these great lines that I love that are just like, yeah, of course. And, you know, so, you know, we get that, and, you know, Shang and Mulan bust in, and and no, it's Shang busts in, knocks, Shanu away from the Emperor. The others rush in, they grab the Emperor, they slide down this, the rope or whatever that has a ton of the lanterns on it, and they slide down that, and the Emperor gets away. And Mulan, cuts the rope so, the gang of three and the Emperor are safe. They're down in the crowd safely. And, the crowd's cheering, of course, because they're kind of watching this. And, Shanu's like looking at them, and he, glares at Shang, grabs Shang. He's like, "You took away my victory," and everything. And then Mulan, throws her shoe at him, which I love. And it bounces back to her, which I just find funny. But she's like, "No." She, holds her hair up. "I did." And, and he realizes that, oh, you're the soldier from the mountains, and he starts chasing her. And she leads him through the castle, and through the palace, and she, tells Mushu and Cricky, go to the, has an idea, and he flies off on one of the kites that's flying around and lands on the fireworks stand where they're setting off all these fireworks and everything, or they were. That's kind of stopped for the moment. But they, get to the fireworks stand, and he's, commandeering a bunch of fireworks and everything, scaring the heck out of the fireworks people. "Who are you? Your worst nightmare." It's like demon, dragon, butterfly thing. And they go, so he's getting the giant rocket that, of course, is going to be used against, Shanu. And Mulan kind of leads Shanu up to the roof, unintentionally. I mean, she leads him up to the roof. And I have a fan. I should have brought the fan. I might have the fan in the other Mulan video, but she takes the fan, and this is described in the bonus features on the animated one, that she uses the most feminine of objects, this fan, to disarm this Hun of his this steel sword, and he stabs at her with it. She's it stabs the fan. She closes the fan around it, and then spins the sword and points it at Shanu. And then Mushu lights the rocket, and she pins Shanu to the roof. And the rocket hits Shanu, and he's sent flying into the fireworks stand, which just sends off even more fireworks because there's just more explosions going off. And her and Mushu are running and running. Get off the roof, get off the roof, get off the roof. And they jump, and the fireworks behind them and everything. And they land, and she kind of lands on Shang, which I just kind of find funny. And she's okay, Shang's okay, Mushu's okay, the horse is okay, the gang of three is okay. And, the, Shifu comes out, and he's kind of on fire, which I'm like, okay, you deserve this. And he's like, "Where is she?" And they're, the Shang and the three are trying to protect Mulan. And she's like, "She's not worth protecting," and everything. And Shang is, ready. I'm pretty sure Shang's about ready to punch, Shifu, which the man deserves it. He's about ready to punch him. And that's when the Emperor shows up, and he, just stops everything. And Shan, Fazu or Shifu is just ready to take down whatever it is that ready to take down whatever punishment the Emperor is going to dole out onto Mulan and to Shang and the others for helping her and causing all the problems. And he berates Mulan. The Emperor's like, "You stole your father's armor, ran away from home, impersonated a soldier, deceived your commanding officer, destroyed my palace, and you have saved us all." And he bows, and then Shifu is just like, it's like groveling position. And then, the other three bow, Shang and the other three all bow, and the other three are still in their makeup and dresses and everything, and they all bow. And then we have this moment where Mulan looks over behind her, and we see this just wave of the crowd bowing to her. And it's just, that was just always one of my moments as a kid where it's just like, yes, you bow to her. She caused some damage, but she just freaking saved all of your lives. And saved the Emperor and all of this. And yes, she's a woman, and she did all of this, but she did it, and she saved all of you. And, so we get that sequence, and then, you know, the emperor is ready to kind of give Mulan kind of anything. He's like, well, would you like to have a position on my council or whatever? And he's like, well, you can have Chifu's job. And Chifu's like, what? Like faints. Just like, yeah, you deserve it. It's karma. And she's like, no, I just, she's very flattered, of course. It just, yeah. She's like, no, I just want to go home. I just want to go home and see my family. And, Emperor, of course, accepts. He gives her the crest of the Emperor and the sword of Shanu. And then she hugs him. And I love Yao. He's like, is she allowed to do that? And all the others are just like, eh. But she can, apparently. And she hugs, the Gang of Three. And, Shang and her are kind of, Shang, I'm pretty sure Shang kind of wants to hug her, but he's still kind of coming to terms with the fact of, okay, so Ping was a girl all along, so I wasn't connected with her, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, he doesn't know how to talk to her. I don't think that Shang quite realizes how to talk to Mulan. He's like, you fight good. I'm like, that is not how you talk to a woman, but okay. He's like, you fight good. And Mulan's like, thanks. Gets on Khan, rides off. Has Mushu and Cricky with her, and they're riding off home. And, they ride off home, and we cut back to, Fazu sitting there underneath the cherry blossom tree or the peach blossom tree, whichever it was. And he's waiting, and, we get the flowers are falling. And, the reference back to her as he picks up, what would have been the last one that bloomed, and he's looking at it, and then, Mulan comes in, and he sees her, and he's just like, and she's got the medal, the crest on her and the sword. She's like, I brought you the sword of Shanu and, the crest of the Emperor. They're gifts to honor the Fa family. And and I love what he does. And I think it's pretty much just like my favorite moment in the movie. He throws the sword and the medallion to the side, and then he just hugs her. Because it's like he hasn't seen her in, several weeks, probably a month, maybe 2 months, depending on however long it took for, she was in training for about 3 weeks or so, and then she rides off, and then however long it took them to get to the other village, and then from her to then travel back from the Imperial City to her home, however long that would have taken. And, so it's probably been several months since he's seen her, and he probably was worried the entire time. So was her mother, so was her grandmother. Probably most of her village was probably worried for her. And, he just hugs her, and he's like, the greatest gift in honor is having you for a daughter. And, and they hug, and I just love that moment. And, yeah, I do. I love that moment. And then, we have her mom and her grandma watching, and the grandma's like, she brought home a sword. She should have brought home a man. And then we have Shang show up, and he's like, does Fa Mulan live here? The mom and the grandma. That way. And he goes, and he's got her helmet. He's got Mulan's helmet, and he goes in, and he's like, Mulan, you forgot your helmet. And he looks at Fazu. Your helmet. And I like Fazu just kind of looks at Mulan and like nods, and she just like takes the helmet. She's like, would you like to stay for dinner? The grandma in the background, would you like to stay forever? And Shang stays, of course, for dinner, and then we cut to the guardians that are all, the guardians are happy and celebrating and everything, and Mushu is back, and and the first answer is just like, fine. Probably like, fine, you could be a guardian again. God, I'm dead, but my blood pressure is through the roof. It's probably what's going through his mind. So we get that whole moment, and they're all, all the ancestors are partying and everything, and that was the end of the movie. So for cast, we have Ming-Na Wen as Mulan, and if that name sounds any familiar to you at all, she is Agent Melinda May, on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and she is also Fennec Shand on The Mandalorian, which is now going to think she's going to be in the Book of Boba Fett, I think is what the new one's going to be for that her and Boba Fett are going to be in. We have Eddie, so I love her. I love Mandalorian. I was like, when I watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then I'm like, she sounds familiar. Google. Oh, that's why she's familiar, because she's been Mulan through the original, the sequel, the Kingdom Hearts games, House of Mouse stuff, Wreck-It Ralph. She didn't play her in any of the live action stuff, but she is in the 2020 movie, and I will talk about that when we get to that. When I get to that in the actual review, when I get to talking about that, but this is the rest first, not so much here, but there. We got Eddie Murphy as Mushu, which is just great. We have B.D. Wong as Li Shang. Donny Osmond provides the singing voice for Li Shang, and Jackie Chan actually provides the speaking and singing voice for Li Shang in all 3 Chinese variations, which I'm like, okay, that's awesome. And the music video that they released in Japan is Jackie Chan singing the I'll Make a Man Out of You, which I love that video. It is so funny, and I'm like, yeah, I'm perfectly okay with this. Lea Salonga is the singing voice for Mulan. She was Jasmine. We have Miguel Ferrer as Shanu. We have Harvey Fierstein as Yao. We have Getty Watanabe as Ling. We have Jerry Tondo as Shenpo. We have James Hong as Chifu. We have Son Tek O as Fazu. We have June Foray, legendary actress June Foray. If you don't know what she's been in, go look her up. She's been in every every animation thing. Like, she's Rocky from Rocky and Bullwinkle. She's Cindy Lou Who from How the Grinch Stole Christmas, from the animated one, from the original one. She's so many other things throughout Disney and Looney Tunes. Just go look up June Foray. She's awesome. Pete Morena is, of course, the Emperor of China, who is Mr. Miyagi, of course, and has the great line that I slightly missed but I'm going to say it here, where it's he's talking to Shang, and he makes the line of, the flower that blooms in adversity is the most rare and beautiful of all. Talking about Mulan as she's leaving. Shang, what? The Emperor just looks at him, and he's got his hat in his hand, and he looks at him and he's like, you don't meet a girl like that every dynasty. Hat walks off. And I'm like, okay. Always love that line. You don't meet a girl like that every dynasty. We have George Takei as the first ancestor Fa. We have Frida Fao Shen as Fa Li, so Mulan's mother. We have Miriam Fargolfs, probably mispronounced that, as the matchmaker. And we have Frank Welker as Ka the horse and Cricky the cricket. For the songs, we of course have Honor to Us All, which is sung by The Village and Mulan. We have Reflection, which is of course sung by Mulan. We have I'll Make a Man Out of You, which is of course sung by the Donny Osmond as Shang, and the rest of the chorus, the cast. A Girl Worth Fighting For is of course sung by the cast. True to Your Heart is actually one of the end credit songs. It's just sung by 98 Degrees and Stevie Wonder. So that's just fun there. And then the other end credit song is the pop version of Reflection, which is sung by Christina Aguilera. Which of course I love both of those songs. Songs where I can do most of the lines for all the songs. The legend is of course the story is of course based off of the Ballad of Mulan, which has been around since I think they kind of the earliest accounts of the legend state that she lived during the the Northern Wei dynasty, from 386 to 534. I'm assuming AD. but there's multiple reports and versions that go all over the place and everything. That just all go all just all these other variations. There's like long poems on the bonus features for the animated one. There is where actually like they read out the poem, the ballad, which is a very nice ballad. It's not sung, but it's a poem and everything. And I loved it. So it's fun to listen to. That was that. Now we're gonna do the sequel, which came out in one moment. The sequel came out in 2004, just called Mulan 2. It takes place a month or so after the events of the first movie. People in China are still celebrating and everything. The Huns are gone. The Middle Kingdom is at peace, and Mulan is now idolized by all of the children, especially the girls. That love her for what she did, that she stood up and did what she had to protect her father and her family and her country. And the first song in the movie is called Lesson Number One. It's Mulan singing to all these little girls about because they all want to learn how to fight. And so she's singing to them about lesson number one is you have to be gentle but firm, yielding but strong. There's all these things, and she's trying to explain it to them, and it's just this fun sequence where it's like her singing to the girls and starting to train them a little bit. And then Shang shows up, and he's been promoted to general, and he's come because he of course wants to propose to Mulan. And I just find that so sweet. But apparently the mom and the dad and the grandma, mostly the dad and the grandma, were betting on when Shang was going to show up and propose to Mulan, and I just find that so funny. And so Shang shows up and proposes, and then we have Mushu is very happy. Mushu has kind of been living in the lap of luxury in the temple at the moment for the past month, probably. And when he tells the ancestors that Mulan is going to be getting married, the ancestors are extremely happy. And then he figures out why. Because if Mulan marries, then her husband's ancestors and guardians are now in charge of protecting the temple, of protecting the family, and Mushu would no longer be a guardian. He'd be out of a job. And Mushu was originally very, very supportive of the wedding of Mulan and Shang, and Mulan being happy and everything, very supportive. And then that switches, and he's like, well, in order to keep my job, I'm going to have to break him up. I'm like, well, we need conflict in the movie, I guess. And that's where Mulan or Mushu comes in. So he's kind of the antagonist for the movie. But Mulan and Shang have their big, they're kind of not their wedding banquet, but like their engagement banquet, and there's lots of guests there, and her parents are kind of watching, and there's like lots of different, Mulan and Shang being on very different pages. Mulan likes spicy, Shang likes this other stuff. Mulan wants a couple of kids, Shang wants a lot of kids, just like all these, not quite lining up right in what they think or what they want. And then there is a message that comes for them from the emperor, and before they leave, Mulan's mother and father give them yin and yang necklaces, and one goes to Mulan that is one half, and then Shang gets the other one that is the other half, and it is a reference to that you have to find balance with each other, and that the necklaces will help remind you of that. And that's what those are supposed to be. And Mulan and Shang look at it as it's an honor to be given these. And Shang seems to be very, very honored and everything by Mulan's parents. Shang seems to be not have quite as much of a stick up his butt as he did in the original. Mostly because they're not at war at the moment. He's actually found a girl that he loves. He does have a lot more responsibility with being a general, but still. And they head off to go and see the emperor, and the emperor explains to them that there are threats coming from a different area. The Huns are still not the happiest at the moment. And in order to help strengthen our alliances with other kingdoms, we are going to send 3 princesses from our kingdom to this other kingdom. I think it was the kingdom of Qigong, I think is what the other kingdom was. And he explains that, you'll take the 3 princesses here and they will marry the sons of this other kingdom. And, to fend off, so that way they can fend off. It's not the Huns in this one, it's the Mongols that are the problem. And, Mulan is a little, I wouldn't say dubious, but she's like, she gets to choose who she wants to marry, of course, but she's like, isn't it a little, a mean or something like that to force your daughters to have to marry princesses that they don't know, or princes that they don't know? And the emperor reveals that they're his daughters, and he's like, my daughters know what is expected of them. And Mulan kind of backs down a bit, and Shang is there, and he kind of comforts Mulan. He's like, not everyone will be lucky enough to have the same choice that you and I have in this matter. And they need to complete the mission in 3 days of getting them to there, or the alliance will crumble, and then the Mongols will destroy China. I'm like, I think a little bit more than 3 days would probably take what that would be, but sure. And Mulan and Shang enlist the help of Yao, Ling, and Shen Po, who have, of course, been honored as heroes of China. The 3 were actually trying to find brides with the matchmaker, and the matchmaker did not like it. It's the same matchmaker from the first movie, and she did not like, she's like, I can't find any of you a girl. Nothing will work for the 3 of you. And like, so we get kind of a redo of A Girl Worth Fighting For, and it's, still the 3 of them kind of, going over what they wanted in a girl. Ling wants a girl that's going to, laugh at his jokes and everything. Just like all these other things that they want in the girls, in their dream girl each. And, Mulan and Shang show up, and they're like, okay, well, we need you to help us with escorting these 3 princesses to Qigong, so that way we can make this alliance work. So, blah, blah, blah. And they're up for it. And that night, Mulan and Shang, and, they're kind of leaving under cover of night, and the 3 princesses. We have Mei, who is the princess who is in pink. We have Ting Ting, who is the eldest, who is the princess in purple. And then we have Su, who is the one that is in kind of a orangish yellow. And they're the 3 princesses. And if you kind of haven't figured out where this is going yet, or if you've never seen the sequel, first off, the sequel is okay. The sequel is pretty good. I mean, they get most of the voice cast for the major characters back. I don't really think they needed to redo any of the voice casting, because all the people were still alive. Pete Moreno was still thankfully alive to be able to do the lines for the Emperor. Not that he has too many lines, but he's got a few in there. And him and Shang and Mulan are talking, of course. But there's not too much else that goes in there. Most of the cast came back for the movie. I'm pretty sure, as far as I remember, it seemed to be the same cast list. Ming-Na, of course, comes back, and the others come back to play their roles. The only one that I would think of, but I'm pretty sure they still got Eddie Murphy to come back and play Mushu again, and I think they did. So they have, it's, if you haven't figured it out, the 3 princesses fall in love with, Yao, Ling, and Shen Po. Yeah. And that's kind of what happens. That's the crux of the movie. And we get the princesses and the 3 kind of falling in love with each other. Yao and Mei fall in love with each other, and Ting Ting and Ling. Ling and Ting Ting kind of take the longest, because Ling is a goofball. And Ting Ting, she's the one that is like she's the oldest. She's the one that's trying to be the most proper out of all of them and do what she's supposed to. And there's a funny moment in it where we have Mei talking to the other 2, and she's like, "But Yao and I share a connection that's deep down there." And like, her sisters are just like, "What the frick is wrong with you?" type thing, staring at her. And throughout the whole course of this, we have Mushu doing so much stuff in the background trying to break up Mulan and Shang. And Mushu is kind of basically, as I said, kind of the antagonist of this movie because he's trying to get Mulan and Shang to have like this huge fight. And he makes Shang set himself on fire, he makes Shang fall in the river, he makes Shang kind of almost fall off his horse, he all this stuff that just causes so many problems. And it doesn't work because Mulan just kisses Shang and does something cute, or just finds a oh good, we're good, type of a thing. Like, it works out, and like it just doesn't work. And and the three princesses and the gang of three are slowly falling in love with each other, Sue and Chen Po and everything. Ting Ting is the one that takes the longest, and we get the song with the girls that is called I Want to Be Like Other Girls, which is the three princesses song, and it's them singing about the fact of they want to be able to do what other girls do. They want to be able to let their hair down, they want to be able to go and have fun, they don't want to wear the stupid pointy shoes. Sue is like, I want to eat a whole cake. They want to have fun, all this other stuff, and they want to be able to get married for love as opposed to for duty and honor. And it's throughout the course of the song, Ting Ting changes, and she's like, yeah, I kind of want that too. And unfortunately, throughout the course of the travel, they unfortunately end up kind of getting lost. Mushu, unfortunately, they end up getting lost. The map gets destroyed, whatever, and then Shang and Mulan are kind of arguing about going this way, going that way, going this way, going that way. And Yao comes back in at one point and he's like, well, I found a village. Where did you find a village? I followed the river. The two of them are like, what river? And points, shows them to the trees. See, river, town. Okay, are we good now? And what ends up happening is Yao and the three take the princesses into town, and well, it's kind of the princesses kind of want to go to town, and the three want to take the princesses into town, so it's like things line up, and it's kind of like all six of them kind of want the same thing, but they need to find a way to get away from Mulan and Shang, because Shang and Mulan unfortunately end up having a big fight, but we're not quite there yet. But what ends up happening is the six of them go off to the village, and Mushu uses this as a way of fanning the flames between Mushu and Shang, or between Mulan and Shang, and the princesses and the three leave, and then Mushu tells Mulan that they left, and she goes off to follow them, and we get like this just fun sequence between all three couples. Yao gets into a wrestling match, and then he wins May a stuffed panda, and then Chen Po and Sue kind of bond more over food and everything. They're shopping and looking for food, and then Ling and Ting Ting finally kind of come to terms with it, because what happens is Ling is just trying to make her laugh because he wants a girl that'll laugh at his jokes, and he's just like, because Ling is the one that it takes the longest for, because Ting Ting just does not quite. She's just kind of not like, she's like resisting and everything. But what ends up happening is Ling finally makes her laugh, and because he does something very stupid on accident, and she just laughs, and it's like this like honking laugh sound, and Ling thinks it's so cute. She hates her laugh. Ting Ting hates her laugh, and so she doesn't laugh very often. Unless I'm assuming she's in like private with her sisters or something like that. She doesn't laugh very often. And Ling finally makes her laugh. And then that's where they bond, and he finds out that, oh, you do have a sense of humor. And then she kind of does what he had done earlier in the movie, where she takes chopsticks and put them up her nose. And Ling's just like instantly like, oh, I'm in love type thing. So that's, all three couples are now good. And Mushu sent Mulan after them, so Mulan's going to go find them. And then we have Mushu causing more problems, because he's of course more worried about his own job than Mulan being happy and everything. So he makes these puppets, and he does like shadow puppets on the Shang's tent in order to try to wake Shang up, and has the shadow puppets. Well, he actually makes the puppets, and it's like some of them are the princesses, one of them is Mulan, and he's got, the Mulan puppet like complaining, he's, mimicking Mulan's voice, like complaining about Shang and his horrid breath, and won't stop for directions, and he won't do this, and he won't do that, and he's just, so, blah, blah, blah. And, Mushu gets Shang awake, and Shang goes off and finds him in the village. And Mulan found the three couples in the village already, and she's happy for them. Shang shows up and he's not. And him and Mulan just have this huge blowout fight with like him just shouting at her. And, it's actually kind of a hard moment to watch. And we have the three princesses and the three the gang of three there as well, and it's just like, and Shang is like reminding the three of them, you three, reminding the princesses, you three have a duty. You're supposed to go and marry these princes in Qigong, and do that to help save China. And and then we have the three soldiers you are supposed to just protect them. You're not supposed to fall in love with them. You're just supposed to protect them. And so we get they're not supposed to talk to the princesses anymore on Shang's orders. And so Mulan and Shang are kind of, they break off their engagement, and Mushu is happy because now he gets to keep his job as a guardian, and not thinking about the consequences of how much this hurts Mulan, of course. And while they're riding, there ends up being the cart somehow gets destroyed that they're in, and they all fall into the water and everything at some point, and then they end up, on their traveling as well, they end up getting attacked by bandits. But before that, we had like the three were trying, the gang of three were trying to kind of they can't talk directly to the princesses, but they kind of try to they talk to each other and say, well, if I could say this to them, or if I could say this to Ling, or to Ting Ting, or to whatever, just to kind of help the princesses. And then they are attacked by bandits on the road, and this results in it's kind of a big chase battle type sequence, not a huge battle type sequence, but more of it's like, well, we need to get some more action in here, not so much slapstick with Mushu, but we need some more action to like heighten the reality of what's going on and heighten the drama. And so they do that, and we get the whole big kind of chase fight sequence and everything, where they have to save the princesses. And unfortunately, it ends up resulting in Mulan and Shang hanging off of a cliff, with Mulan holding onto a rope and Shang holding onto her hand. And the rope can't support the both of them, and Shang lets go. And we just watch Mulan's heart break in this moment, because they just had this whole argument and everything, but she still loves him. And we just watch as Mulan's heart just shatters, and she cries, and Shang falls into this ravine that would not look like you would be able to survive, even though there's like a river at the bottom. Does not look like you'd be able to survive. And Mulan is just heartbroken and crying, and she climbs out, and the other six see that Shang's not there. And I think Mushu is starting to try to kind of realize the problem, the repercussions of what he did for his own selfishness. And he's just, and Mushu is starting to realize this, and we have Mulan just this scene of Mulan just crying on the edge of the cliff. And a little bit of time passes, and it's raining and everything, of course, because rain happens in extremely emotional moments. It will rain, because even the heavens are crying. And Mulan then tells the six, I'm going to go to Qigong on my own. You three, you six, go off together, make each other happy, because I don't want to make three of you, the princesses, go through with marriages that are not for love. I will go, I will go to Qigong. You go. You go. Be happy. Be on your own. I will be the bride for one of the princes in Qigong to still solidify the arrangement. And, her and Mushu and Kriki make their way to Qigong, and Shang's horse kind of wandered off. But the six leave. Mulan heads off to Qigong, and she talks to the king, and she's like, everyone died. Shang died. I don't remember if she specifically tells the king that the princesses died or what, but she's there, and she's like, I will marry your son, one of your sons, to solidify this. And the king's advisors are like, well, the hero of China would be very good, a nice little jewel in your crown type of a thing as a daughter-in-law. And he's like, okay, you will be wed to my eldest son tonight. And his eldest son is kind of a dork. And so Mulan, we have Mulan getting all ready for the wedding. Still a wedding, not the wedding she wanted. It's not to Shang. It doesn't have her family there, not her village. It's to a prince to still save her kingdom because she thinks that Shang is dead. And she's, getting dressed, and then Mushu breaks, and he explains to her, he confesses, I did this all, I'm the one that did this to you and Shang, I'm the one that caused this problem, I'm so sorry, this isn't what I wanted, I just didn't want to lose my job. And, Mulan is of course very angry at him for this, which I don't blame her in the slightest. I would be extremely angry too if someone, ruined my relationship just so they could keep their job. I'd be extremely angry about that. And, so she just has this huge fight with Mushu, and then she heads to go to the wedding. And throughout the course of the movie, we keep hearing about this golden dragon of unity, which is, in the story, they use it as a representation of this dragon as the one that can, find love, find, happiness, for someone. It's kind of the one that kind of reigns over marriage, I guess. I don't know how true that actually is with Chinese culture, but they have these, golden dragon of unity that's there, smiles upon them and everything. And we have the wedding going on between Mulan and the prince, and, the king is there presiding over the wedding. And, we have, Mulan's, it's about to, come to the point where she would be married to the prince, and then Shang shows up. Shang is not dead. He survived the fall. His horse found him. Good horse. Shang rides in on the horse and stops the wedding. And he apologizes to Mulan in front of this entire crowd that's there for the royal wedding and everything. And he's just, he apologizes, and he tells the king, he tells the king of the Qigong, I still wish to marry Mulan. I am sorry. I don't want this wedding to happen between your son and Mulan, type of a thing. And at that point in time, Mushu, via prodding from Kriki, has gone into the Golden Dragon of Unity statue, and he, releases fire from it so that everybody thinks that the dragon is alive. And he talks through it with like a megaphone, and he's like, I proclaim that, I, the Golden Dragon of Unity, proclaim that Mulan and Shang shall marry, and that the kingdom of Qigong will still join forces with the Middle Kingdom to to protect them from the Mongols and everything, and that wherever the three princesses are, that they may marry whomever they please and whoever pleases them. And then so we see the three couples in the crowd. And they're they all kiss and everything, so they're happy, and they know that they can now be together because the Golden Dragon of Unity wished it and blessed their marriages. And and Mulan is, Shang is still, he's in rags and everything from his fall, and Mulan's still in a very nice dress and everything. And Mushu says, and these two, I've never seen a better couple than these two. And Mulan, of course, knows that it's Mushu because she knows Mushu's voice and everything. And so he's kind of doing this, and I think it's, Mushu is like, I don't care what happens to me at this point in time. I want Mulan happy. I'm the one that ruined this for her. I want her to be able to, have her happy ending, even if I lose my job. And so the alliance will still be honored. And what ends up happening is, that Mulan and Shang and Mushu head back, and Mulan and Shang kind of have probably more of a proper wedding in regards to having Mulan's parents there and her grandma and the village and everything there. And Mushu is, getting ready to say goodbye. He's, packing up his stuff, which I'm like, what kind of stuff do you have? But he's like packing up his stuff, and like the ancestors are there. It's not that he's not going to be around anymore. It's just now he gets back to being demoted to like being the gong ringer and being, the one that has to serve the ancestors instead of the ancestors kind of serving him type thing. And we get Shang and Mulan come in, and the ancestors and Mushu are watching, and Shang brings in a tablet and he puts it in there, and Mulan's like, what exactly is it that we're doing? And he's like, we're combining the temples. And Mulan doesn't quite know what that means. And Mushu like asks the ancestor, what does that have to do, in regards to me? And the ancestor's like, it means you get to keep your job. And Mushu is so happy, and he like jumps down and like reveals himself to Shang. And like Mulan and I don't think Mushu is quite remembered. Oh yeah, Shang doesn't know about me. And he shows up and he's just like so happy. And then Shang is not surprised in the least to see Mushu. And Mushu's like, wait a second, you know about me? And Mulan's like, I have no secrets from my husband, as she like kind of like gives Mushu this smug look. I have no secrets from my husband. And Mushu is happy because he gets to keep his job, and he's happy because Mulan and Shang are married, and of course Mulan and Shang are happy because they're married, and her parents are happy. And I would assume that whatever the Chinese equivalent of like the afterlife is, if Shang's father can look down, I'm pretty sure he probably would have been a little bit worried. But now by technicality, he would be becoming an ancestor in the temple, I guess. However, that would work for combining into the temple. I don't know exactly what happens with that. I don't know the rules for that, but Shang was kind of willing to break the rules there. That's kind of the end for that movie. In regards to it, we have Lucy Liu was May, so she was the pink one. We have Sandra Oh, so from Grey's Anatomy, as Ting Ting. And then we had Lauren Tom as Sue. I don't remember off the top of my head what else I've seen Lauren Tom in, but I know I've seen her in other stuff. Lucy Liu is, of course, just, insert name of awesome movie, and, I like the Charlie's Angels movie. She's in the Charlie's Angels movie. She's on Elementary. She's been in so many other things. The songs are, of course, Lesson Number 1 is the first song, where it's Mulan, of course, teaching the girls. And we have A Girl Worth Fighting For, the redo, which is the three guys singing about like what they want in a girl. Like Other Girls is, of course, the three princesses singing about what they want. And then the last song is Here Beside Me, which is, I think, supposed to be... I don't remember if it's Leia Salonga that sings it again, the singing voice from Mulan that sings it, but it's the end credit song, and it's just kind of, it's kind of more the love song for the movie. And that's basically where that ends. As I said, I think I said it came out in 2002 or 2004, one of the two. What was it? 2004. And so it came out about 6 years after the original. Still not the largest gap. I still think the largest gap between, like, for Disney movies, between the original and the sequel was, I think it was Bambi to Bambi 2, I think was the biggest gap between, like, the original and then the sequel, because, the Cinderella didn't have as big as a gap between Cinderella and then Cinderella 2, and then the sequel, and then the third one, and then even between, like, Lady and the Tramp and Lady and the Tramp 2, and the 101 Dalmatians and 102 Dalmatians, and or the Patches Adventure, whatever ones, and then yeah, there was other ones. I will be going over the live action stuff and the Kingdom Hearts stuff in the next video. That will be the next Mulan video, and then after that one, it is Tarzan. I'm gonna do Tarzan, and then Fantasia 2000, and then Dinosaur. And then my dad and I are going to be taking a short break from Disney movies for a little while because I have a few other projects that I want to work on. By the time this video goes up, I may have already started on some of the Digimon videos, since those were the other ones that I wanted to work on, and get those ones out of the way for the original, for Digimon Adventures 1 and 2. So those will probably be they'll either be out when this one comes up, because I've kind of backlogged the Disney movies, because then if I don't have time to do certain videos a week, I can do a couple of Disney videos that week instead, and then do other videos after that, and intersperse them. So these are kind of backlogged a little bit. But yeah, so then once I hit Dinosaur, I might, there might still end up being a few other ones that come out pretty quickly after that. Not 100% sure yet. It depends on, when my dad and I get back to the Disney movies, but then we'll finish them up, and then I'll go through all the way to the most recent Disney one that is out at the moment is, of course, Raya and the Last Dragon, and I will, get through to that at that point. And then we'll just, as the Disney movies come out, I'll, do reviews of them. We'll see what happens from there. So that's what we got. I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye! My, what beautiful blossoms we have this year. But look, this one's late. But I'll bet that when it blooms, it'll be the most beautiful of all.